Good morning. My name is Sunil Dasgupta, and I am a candidate for the Montgomery County Board of Education. I'm recording this video because the Montgomery County Federation of Republican Women is organizing a virtual candidate forum for which they have asked that we answer 4 questions within a certain time limit. Before I begin, I want to say that this election is a mail-in election. We will have voting places, but few. Um, Almost everybody who's voted before should get their ballot in the mail. Um, you can check whether the State Board of Elections has sent it by going to their website. There's a tool that you can use to check. Once the ballot arrives, you fill it in, put it back in the mail. Postage will be prepaid, so no problem. This makes voting really simple and, of course, safe at this time. Let's go to the questions. The first question is this. Imagine you meet someone in an elevator. You have only 1 minute to pitch your campaign. What would you say? I'll say, I'm a parent of 3 MCPS students, a PTA leader who has advocated for and organized around student mental health and wellness, and a professor who teaches mainly MCPS graduates. I have a good sense of where the strengths and weaknesses of MCPS are and where we need reform. I began this campaign with 3 goals in mind. One was to try to reduce class sizes by hiring more teachers, staff, and counselors. Second was to invest in the mental health of students and staff. And the third was to rebuild the home and school partnership. With COVID, I think what we have to do now is to defend public education from budget cuts, from unequal access, and from the prospect of replacing teachers with technology. All right, let's go to question 2. How should teachers evaluate student performance during the online learning period? For example, should they use pass-fail or the grading system? I think teachers should evaluate student performance patiently. And I say this because I believe that what we are doing right now is remote emergency teaching. It's not true online education. True online education is very different. It flips homework and classwork. It changes the way that we look at student performance, how we measure it, the sequencing, the frequency, the content, everything about online education is very, very different from a classroom setting. And so as when we are in this transition, I think it is important that we hold harmless students that are unable to do the work, whether it's because of access, but also because of other things such as stress and anxiety. So I think I agree with MCPS's position of grading this quarter passing complete. And I think we need to continue that through the period of this transition. The problem is that we don't know how long this transition will last. If we knew that we were going to do this for 2 years, I think we could find mechanisms and quickly move back to letter grades. But I think the fact that it is uncertain, we don't know when we will return, means that we are loath to make the investment in developing these new systems that would help us. So I think so long as we are in a transition, we should be in a transition truly, and not. And I think once we can, move on from the transition, we go back to letter grades. Question 3. The estimated cost of implementing the current report recommendation statewide is $4 billion. With the increased taxes that would be required to fund these recommendations and the potential economic impact on local budgets from COVID-19, are there ways to close the achievement gap without increasing costs? And how would you prioritize the recommendations, I assume, of the commission itself? So I would prioritize early childhood education, and I would also prioritize the fact that we need to bring experienced teachers and rigorous coursework to all our students. Those would be my two priorities from the Commission's report. I think it's possible to address achievement gap by redistributing resources. And one of the ways that we do that is to look at facilities. If you look at our schools right now, we have about 100 schools that are overcrowded to the tune of about 11,000 students, but we also have another 100 schools that are under enrolled to the tune of 10,000 students. So I think if we can reassign some students, we can save money on new buildings and on interest costs and all of that. And we're not, nobody's talking here about sending students far away from their homes, busing across the county, which is something that has come up. Let me give you a good example. In my own neighborhood, my daughter goes to a school that is overcrowded and that recently received $13 million expansion because it is overcrowded. And yet, not a mile away from that school is another school where the principal is concerned that they might lose their third kindergarten teacher because they don't have enough students. We could have been moved to the other school. We could have the kids go to the same pool. We're in the same neighborhood. I don't think it would have changed very much of anything if we had done that. And I understand that this process can be difficult and should be fair and transparent and legitimate. And I think we can work together to bring that about. But I don't think it's an option to do nothing. I think these changes are inevitable particularly because of the fiscal situation we are in. Question 4. We hear a lot about college students becoming overwhelmed by student debt after they graduate. How can the school system help students who are so inclined to prepare for careers in the trades, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, hospitality industry that don't necessarily require 4-year degrees? Well, I agree with the assumption of this question, and I think we should make investment in vocational training programs. I think the issue, so first, we are doing some of that. Thomas Edison High School in now Seneca Valley, new programs are going to do that. But I think it's important to understand that these programs are expensive. They are capital intensive. They need specialized spaces, they need specialized equipment. Compare that with a regular classroom with students and teachers, maybe a smart board, and computer and Chromebooks, which are cheap. So I think we have to find money to do that. And looking at facilities is a key way of doing it. We have to think about how we rebalance our operating and capital budgets. And that's really where I think the money comes from before we can go back and look at the revenue side of things. I want to plug something that is not mentioned in this respect often, which is student journalism and media production. We are fortunate to live near Washington, D.C., that has literally hundreds of news bureaus that need young people to produce content. And at home, our local news is dead or dying. And we depend really on school newspapers such as Silver Chips out of Montgomery Blair, Black and White out of Whitman, and The Current out of Watkins Mill to really inform us. And so the sad part is that not all our high schools have strong student journalism programs, and certainly not all our middle schools have them. So I think that is a really important area in which we can really make a difference. And by focusing not that much money, I mean, it really does not require that much of specialized equipment. So we should look at that. I'll end here and say that I wish you all peace and strength at this time. And I look forward to meeting you personally once this is all over. Thank you.